Picture this. Summer, 1858. The greatest city on earth can't escape its own smell. Members of Parliament flee their chambers. They drape curtains soaked in chloride of lime over the windows of Westminster. The chemical burns their eyes, but it's better than the alternative. Outside, the River Thames flows thick and brown. It doesn't flow, actually. It crawls. And the smell? Imagine every latrine, every cesspit, every drop of human waste from 2.5 million people. Now imagine it baking in the summer sun. Did you know that in 1858, London was engulfed in a foul stench that made it seem like a city plagued by death? This is the story of how a smell changed the world. London in the mid-19th century stood as the crown jewel of the British Empire. Gas lamps lit the streets. Grand buildings rose from ancient foundations. The city sprawled outward, swallowing villages and farmland with each passing year. But beneath this veneer of progress, something dark was brewing. In this video, you'll explore the infamous Great Stink of 1858, a period when the smell of raw sewage didn't just linger in the streets, it dominated them, it defined them, it nearly destroyed them. This wasn't just an inconvenience, this was a crisis that brought the world's most powerful city to its knees. And what happened next would transform urban life forever. To understand the Great Stink, we must first understand London's explosive growth. In 1800, roughly 1 million people called London home. By 1850, that number had more than doubled. These weren't just statistics. These were real people crammed into spaces never designed to hold them. Families of 8 shared single rooms. Entire neighborhoods sprang up overnight with no planning, no infrastructure, no thought for tomorrow. And every single one of these people produced waste. The medieval solution had been simple: cesspits, underground chambers dug beneath homes and businesses. When they filled up, night soil men would come to empty them. But that system was designed for a city of thousands, not millions. By the 1840s, London had over 200,000 cesspits. Many leaked, most overflowed. All of them stank. And then came what seemed like progress: the flush toilet. The wealthy embraced this modern marvel with enthusiasm. Finally, a civilized way to dispose of human waste. But there was a problem no one had considered. London had no sewer system designed to handle this volume of liquid waste. The old cesspits couldn't cope with the sudden influx of water. They flooded. They collapsed. They poisoned the ground beneath the city. So authorities made a decision that would doom London. They connected the toilets to the storm drains. Every storm drain in London led to one place: the River Thames. The Thames had been London's lifeline for 2,000 years. Romans built their settlement beside it. Medieval merchants transported goods along it. Fishermen pulled salmon from its waters. By 1858, it had become an open sewer. 2.5 million people, all their waste, flowing directly into the river. But here's what made it catastrophic. London still drew its drinking water from the Thames. Water companies had intake pipes positioned just downstream from where the sewage poured in. The same water that carried away excrement in the morning might be pumped into someone's home by evening. And in summer, when the flow slowed to a trickle, the river became something else entirely. Contemporary accounts describe a thick, black sludge. Gas bubbles rose from the depths and burst at the surface, releasing clouds of sulfurous vapor. Dead dogs floated alongside rotting vegetables. industrial waste mixed with human filth. The whole toxic soup fermented in the heat. At low tide, mountains of sewage lay exposed on the riverbanks. They baked in the sun, turning the air itself into poison. This wasn't metaphorical. This wasn't an exaggeration. Scientists later measured hydrogen sulfide levels that would have been fatal in enclosed spaces. While Londoners complained about the smell, something far worse was happening. People were dying. Cholera first struck London in 1832. The disease arrived from India, carried by ships and spread by contaminated water. The symptoms were horrific. Victims suffered violent diarrhea and vomiting. Their skin turned blue. Their eyes sank into their skulls. Death could come within hours of the first symptom. In 1849, cholera killed over 14,000 Londoners. In 1854, another outbreak claimed 10,000 lives. But here's the tragic irony. Medical science had the wrong answer. The prevailing theory was miasma, bad air, corrupt vapors rising from filth and causing disease. It made intuitive sense. Places that smelled bad had more disease. Therefore, the smell itself must be the killer. Doctors prescribed aromatic herbs and perfumes. Authorities ordered the cleaning of cesspits, which only released more fumes. No one suspected the real culprit, the water itself. A physician named John Snow had proposed a radical theory. He suggested cholera spread through contaminated drinking water, not air. In 1854, he traced an outbreak to a single water pump on Broad Street. He convinced authorities to remove the pump handle, and the outbreak ended. But the medical establishment dismissed his findings. The miasma theory was too entrenched, too accepted, too convenient. So London continued drinking from the Thames, and the Thames continued killing Londoners. Daily life in 1850s, London required a tolerance for filth that modern minds can barely comprehend. Walking through working-class neighborhoods meant navigating rivers of sewage in the streets. Slaughterhouses dumped animal blood and offal directly into gutters. Tanneries released toxic chemicals. Factories spewed coal smoke that mixed with the organic stench to create something uniquely vile. Women held perfumed handkerchiefs to their faces. Men smoked cigars constantly, anything to mask the smell. The wealthy retreated to their estates in the countryside during summer months. They called it the season, a time of leisure and society. But it was also an escape from the smell that made London unlivable 3 months every year. The poor had no such luxury. They lived in the worst affected areas, closest to the river, in the most crowded conditions. Children played in streets where sewage ran freely. Families drew water from wells contaminated by nearby cesspits. Court records from the period are filled with complaints. Neighbors suing neighbors over overflowing privies. Tenants reporting landlords for failing to maintain drainage. But individual grievances couldn't solve a systemic problem. The city needed infrastructure. It needed vision. It needed someone willing to undertake a project so massive, so expensive, so ambitious that it seemed impossible. And it needed something else. A crisis so severe that even the powerful could no longer ignore it. The year began normally enough. Spring rains kept the Thames flowing. The smell, while present, remained tolerable. Then came June. The temperature rose. Day after day, the sun beat down on London with unusual intensity. The Thames slowed. Then it nearly stopped. The sewage that usually dispersed downstream began to accumulate. It formed thick deposits along the riverbanks. It created islands of filth in the middle of the river, and then it began to rot. June turned to July. The heat intensified, and the smell became apocalyptic. This wasn't the usual summer stench Londoners had learned to endure. This was something new, something overwhelming, something that made breathing itself an ordeal. Newspapers called it the Great Stink. The Times described the Thames as a pestilential and typhus breeding abomination. Charles Dickens, who knew London's darkest corners as well as anyone, wrote that the river had become a deadly sewer. But the most telling descriptions came from the most powerful place in London, the Houses of Parliament. Parliament sat directly beside the Thames. For decades, members had complained about the smell during summer sessions. They kept the windows closed. They limited debate on particularly hot days. But in the summer of 1858, even the mighty walls of Westminster couldn't keep out the stench. Benjamin Disraeli, then Chancellor of the Exchequer, fled from the library holding a handkerchief soaked in chloride of lime to his face. Committees abandoned their chambers. Debates were cut short. Some members simply left London altogether. They soaked the curtains in chemicals. They spread lime in the corridors. They burned incense. Nothing worked. The smell penetrated everything. It clung to clothes. It settled in my hair. It turned my stomach and shortened tempers. Members of Parliament, the men who governed an empire that spanned the globe, it could not govern in their own chamber because of sewage. The absurdity was not lost on the press. Political cartoons showed members fleeing Westminster, handkerchiefs pressed to their noses. Editorials mocked the politicians who had ignored the problem for years. One newspaper asked a pointed question. If Parliament couldn't tolerate the smell for a few weeks each summer, how did they expect working people to live with it year-round? But mockery, as it turned out, was less important than proximity. The Great Stink didn't just affect the poor anymore. It affected the powerful, and the powerful had the means to do something about it. Joseph Bazalgette was not a household name in 1858. He was an engineer, methodical and precise. He had spent years working on railway projects before joining the Metropolitan Board of Works in 1856. But Bazalgette had been preparing for this moment longer than anyone knew. For years, he had been designing a comprehensive sewer system for London, not a patchwork of fixes, not a temporary solution, a complete reimagining of how a modern city should handle waste. His plan was breathtaking in its ambition. He proposed building 82 miles of massive underground brick sewers. These would intercept the sewage before it reached the Thames and carry it downstream, far east of the city. There, at two massive pumping stations, the waste would be released into the river at high tide. The tidal flow would carry it out to sea, when the system would be gravity-fed, using London's natural slope from north to south. It would be built to last, with sewers large enough to handle a city twice London's size. The estimated cost was £3 million, a staggering sum in 1858. Previous proposals had died in committee. Too expensive, too disruptive, not urgent enough. But in July 1858, with Parliament itself under siege by the stench, everything changed. July 15, 1858, the House of Commons assembled for what should have been a routine session. The temperature outside exceeded 90 degrees. Inside the chamber, members gagged on the smell wafting through every window. Disraeli rose to address the House. His topic, the state of the Thames. He didn't mince words. The river, he declared, had become a Stygian pool. The situation was intolerable. Action was required immediately. Other members added their voices. Conservatives and liberals, usually divided on everything, found rare agreement. Something had to be done. Not next year, not the next session, now. A bill was drafted in days. The Metropolis Local Management Amendment Act empowered the Metropolitan Board of Works to borrow the money needed for Bazalgette's sewer system. Debate was minimal. The opposition melted away. On August 2nd, 1858, to just 18 days after Disraeli's speech, the bill became law. The Great Stink had accomplished what decades of death and disease could not. It forced the government to act. But passing a law was the easy part. Building the largest civil engineering project in human history would be something else entirely. Bazalgette wasted no time. By late 1858, survey teams were marking out routes. Lawyers were negotiating property rights. Engineers were calculating gradients and flow rates. The scale of the project defied imagination. Workers would excavate millions of cubic yards of London clay. They would lay 318 million bricks. They would build structures that needed to last centuries. And they would do it all while the city continued functioning around them. Construction began in 1859. Crews worked simultaneously at dozens of locations across London. They dug deep trenches through crowded streets. Traffic was diverted. Businesses complained. Residents protested. But the work continued. The main sewers were massive. Some were tall enough for a man to stand upright. Others were large enough to drive a carriage through. Bazalgette designed them with meticulous precision. The gradient had to be perfect. Too steep and the flow would damage the brickwork. Too shallow and waste would accumulate. Every junction, every curve, every access point was calculated to the inch. The bricklayers were artists. They created structures of such beauty that Victorian engineers would later take guided tours through the completed tunnels, marveling at the workmanship. But beauty wasn't the goal. Durability was. These sewers needed to outlast everyone who built them. They needed to serve generations yet unborn. And they needed to work. The eastern edge of Bazalgette's system required something unprecedented. Massive pumping stations to lift sewage from the low-lying sewers up to the outfall points. He designed two masterpieces, one at Abbey Mills, one at Crossness. These weren't just functional buildings. They were cathedrals of engineering. Abbey Mills featured an octagonal design with ornate ironwork and decorative brickwork. Inside, enormous beam engines stood like monuments to industrial power. Crossness was even more elaborate. The engine house featured cast iron columns painted in vibrant colors. Gothic arches and Byzantine details turned a sewage pumping station into a work of art. Why the extravagance? Bazalgette believed that great public works should inspire civic pride. These buildings would serve the public for generations. They should reflect the importance of that service. The engines themselves were marvels. Each could lift thousands of gallons per minute from the sewers to the outfall channels. They ran on steam, powered by coal-fired boilers that never stopped. Day and night, year after year, the great engines pumped London's waste out of the city. But Bazalgette's vision extended beyond sewers. He saw an opportunity to solve multiple problems simultaneously. The Thames needed embankments to prevent flooding. London needed new roads to ease traffic. The city needed public spaces. And he needed somewhere to put the sewers. The solution was elegant. Build massive embankments along the Thames, house the main sewers within them, and create new riverside boulevards on top. The Victoria Embankment on the north bank of the Thames became the showpiece. Workers drove iron pilings deep into the riverbed. They built retaining walls of granite. They filled the space behind with earth excavated from the sewer tunnels. The result was a marvel. A wide tree-lined boulevard stretching from Westminster to the city. Underground, the main sewer. Below that, a new underground railway. With 3 problems solved with one structure. The Albert Embankment on the South Bank followed the same principle. Then the Chelsea Embankment further west. These weren't just functional. They were beautiful. Gardens were planted. Statues were erected. Londoners discovered new public spaces where sewage had once been. The embankments reclaimed 52 acres of land from the Thames. They changed the very shape of the river, and they hid Bazalgette's greatest achievement beneath their elegant surfaces. Grand engineering projects always exact a human price. The work was dangerous. Men dug through unstable clay that could collapse without warning. They worked in cramped spaces, in darkness, in conditions that would horrify modern safety inspectors. Some died in cave-ins. Others succumbed to diseases contracted in the fetid conditions. A few simply disappeared into the tunnels. Their bodies never recovered. The records don't capture an exact death toll. Workers were expendable in Victorian England. Their names rarely appeared in official documents. But we know hundreds died, possibly thousands. Their sacrifice built the infrastructure that would save millions. The disruption to daily life was immense. Streets were torn up for months at a time. Businesses lost customers. Residents complained about noise, dust, and inconvenience. The project ran over budget. Costs ballooned from £3 million to over £4 million. Critics called it wasteful. Newspapers questioned whether London really needed such elaborate sewers, but Bazalgette never wavered. He knew what was at stake. Every delay meant more people drinking contaminated water. Every shortcut meant potential failure decades hence. So he built for the ages. The main system was completed in 1865, 7 years of constant labor. But Bazalgette continued refining and expanding until 1875. 20 miles of additional sewers, new connections, improvements, and upgrades. The final statistics were staggering. Over 1,000 miles of street sewers feeding into 82 miles of main intercepting sewers, all flowing by gravity to the pumping stations. All designed to serve a city of 4 million people. London's population in 1865 was 2.5 million. Bazalgette had been built for a city that didn't yet exist, and he was right to do so. The outfall points were miles downstream from London, at Beckton in the north, Crossness in the south. When the system activated, the transformation wasn't immediate. London didn't suddenly smell like roses, but the Thames began to recover. The black sludge slowly cleared, and the toxic vapors diminished. The summer stench, while not eliminated entirely, became manageable. And something else happened, something more important than the smell. People stopped dying. The cholera epidemic of 1866 would be London's last. The disease struck the East End, an area not yet fully connected to Bazalgette's system, but the outbreak was contained. It didn't spread across the entire city as previous epidemics had. Once that neighborhood was connected to the sewers, cholera disappeared from London entirely. The connection between contaminated water and disease finally became undeniable. John Snow had died in 1858, just as the Great Stink forced action on his theories. He never saw his vindication, but his ideas, combined with Bazalgette's engineering, saved countless lives. Deaths from waterborne diseases plummeted. Infant mortality dropped. Life expectancy began its long climb upward. These weren't dramatic changes. There was no single day when Londoners woke up and realized they were safer. When the victory was statistical, spread across decades, visible only in retrospect, but it was real. By 1900, London's population had grown to 6.5 million. The sewers Bazalgette built still served them, still protected them, and they still do today. Most of Bazalgette's original sewers remain in use 165 years later. The brick tunnels he built for a city of 4 million now serve a metropolis of 9 million. They still work. They still protect public health. They still perform the unglamorous but essential task of carrying waste away from where people live. This is engineering at its finest, invisible, reliable, built to last. Modern Londoners walk above these tunnels every day without knowing they're there. They cross the embankments, admiring the Thames, unaware of the massive sewers beneath their feet. Only when something goes wrong, when a sewer collapses or floods, do people remember the infrastructure that makes urban life possible. Bazalgette understood this. He knew his greatest achievement would be taken for granted, and he was fine with that. The measure of good infrastructure is that you don't notice it. It simply works, decade after decade, serving each new generation without fanfare or recognition. But the impact extends beyond London. Cities around the world studied Bazalgette's design. They adapted his principles to their own needs. New York, Paris, Berlin, Tokyo. Every modern city with comprehensive sewerage owes a debt to the system built in Victorian London. The idea that cities should separate drinking water from sewage, that waste should be carried away by underground pipes, that public health depends on proper sanitation. These concepts seem obvious now. They weren't obvious in 1858. The Great Stink taught the world a lesson it's still learning. Infrastructure matters. Public health matters. Long-term planning matters. The same politicians who had ignored the Thames for decades acted in days once the smell reached their own chambers. This is human nature. We respond to immediate crises, not gradual decline. The Thames had been deteriorating for years. The death toll from cholera was appalling. But these weren't urgent in the way the Great Stink was urgent. Sometimes it takes a crisis to force necessary change. But here's the tragedy. The crisis was preventable. If London had invested in sewers decades earlier, thousands of lives would have been saved. The money spent on Bazalgette's system would have been a bargain at twice the price if it had come sooner. This pattern repeats throughout history. Cities ignore infrastructure until it fails catastrophically. Then they scramble to rebuild. The Great Stink was London's wake-up call. Other cities have had their own. New Orleans had Hurricane Katrina. Flint had its water crisis. The lesson is always the same. Invest in infrastructure before disaster strikes, not after. London today faces new challenges Bazalgette never imagined. Climate change brings heavier rainfall. Storm surges threaten the embankments. The population continues to grow. His sewers, magnificent as they are, struggle with the volume during heavy rains. Combined sewer overflows dump untreated sewage into the Thames dozens of times each year. So London is building again. The Thames Tideway Tunnel, a 25-kilometer super sewer, is under construction. It's the largest infrastructure project in London since Bazalgette's day. It cost billions, not millions. But the principle is the same. Build for the future, not just the present. The engineers designing the Tideway Tunnel speak of Bazalgette with reverence. They're adding to his system, not replacing it. That's the ultimate tribute. In infrastructure built so well that it can be expanded rather than demolished. How many of our modern projects will still be in use in 100 to 65 years? The Great Stink of 1858 lasted only a few weeks. By August, the temperature dropped. Rain fell. The Thames began to flow again. The smell faded. But the change it sparked was permanent. Joseph Bazalgette transformed London from a city choking on its own waste into a model of modern sanitation. He saved more lives than any general. He shaped the city more than any architect. And he did it all underground, out of sight, with bricks and mortar and precise calculations. The Thames today is the cleanest it's been in 2 centuries. Fish swim in waters that once killed every living thing. People walk along embankments built on land reclaimed from the river. None of this was inevitable. It required vision. It required investment. It required the political will to undertake a project that would benefit generations yet unborn. And the Great Stink provided the crisis. Bazalgette provided the solution. Together, they changed the world. The next time you turn on a tap, the next time you flush a toilet, the next time you walk down a city street without sewage in the gutters, remember this story. Remember that modern urban life depends on infrastructure most of us never see and rarely think about. Remember that public health is a public good, one that requires constant investment and vigilance. And remember that sometimes it takes a crisis to force necessary change. London in 1858 smelled like death because it was producing death. The Great Stink made that undeniable. What Bazalgette built in response made life possible. So what shocked you most about the Great Stink of 1858? Was it the extent of the problem? The speed of Parliament's response once their own comfort was threatened? Or the fact that Victorian-era sewers still serve London today? Drop a comment below and let me know. And if you're fascinated by how cities evolved and the infrastructure that made modern life possible, check out my other videos on historical events and urban development. I've covered everything from the Great Fire of London to the building of the New York subway system. Here's my question for you. What historical event should I cover next? What moment in history changed the course of cities and civilization? Leave your suggestions in the comments. The most popular choice will be my next video. Thanks for watching. And the next time you're in London, look down at the pavement beneath your feet. Somewhere below in the darkness, Bazalgette's sewers are still working, still protecting, still serving. A testament to engineering built not for glory but for the ages.